Yeah, that is a good question.
There we go.
All right.
This is the only reason I know that there is one.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I guess, well, how else would I have known too? So, all right, well, we've got a core of people. So again, Rich, I'll formally thank you again for appearing at our Coffee with Purpose. Normally our numbers are a little bit bigger, but maybe people were enjoying their August vacation so much. So you're coming to us as the sole candidate for the open select board seat, but nonetheless, we are a bunch of Natick residents committed to good leadership. So we want to know all about what motivates you to become a select board member, what you're hoping to accomplish, and you know, speak kind of for as long as you'd like, and then we'll kind of just open it up for conversation. I'll maybe should ask at the outset, we often go around and introduce ourselves. Glancing at the pictures, Rich, do you feel you know everybody here already, or no?
So the people
Happy to do that.
The people I don't know are Bill, Cindy, and Brinley.
Okay.
So,
right. Well, maybe if those folks would care to just give a super thumbnail introduction, we can do it in that modified way. That would be great. Just to
Happy to do that.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Brinley. I am a 22-year Natick resident. Have been very active in voting and participating my whole life, and especially since I've lived here. Actually, not just especially. I have my whole life. I've never missed an election, local or national or anything, in my whole adult life. I think it's really important. That's why I'm here today. I think it's really important. I'm also, even though I'm extremely active, did not see a lot of information about this particular special election, and I'm interested in how we can make that better. And I'm really glad that somebody's interested in running and that you're running. And thank you.
thanks, Brinley.
I'll jump in next. Bill Ramage. I've been active around town for a few years on a variety of things. I work as a steward at Pekin Cove and help keep that trail looking nice. I'm a newly elected town meeting member and very interested and impressed, by the way, with the amount of talent and volunteerism that helps to keep Natick such a neat place. So interested in your views, and welcome to the meeting.
Thanks.
I'm Cindy Bates, 3-year resident this fall in Natick after 21 years in Roslindale. I live in Natick Center on Lincoln Street opposite the fire station. And I'm a trail steward for the Tacowambe Trail north up over Broad Hill Reservoir. And I also, when the spirit moves, I go down and pick up trash at Coolidge Field. And it's through Pat Conaway that I got connected to this group. I'm a voter, and I'm very interested in how, I think it's changing, but you used to be able to get a weekly paper, and that's gone. And then I got in touch with Sean Sullivan, who writes for the Natick Local Pages, and he wrote a really nice piece about the CPA, but I wish that I had told him that there was a special election. He should write about that and put the CPA on the next one, but whatever. I'm glad you're here. And I do have concerns about how the typical voter is supposed to know about stuff.
Thank you.
And I think, Rick, I don't know you either.
Thank you. I'm a recent resident from early 2018, a new town meeting member from Precinct 8, a climate activist, and a frequent voter. I'm glad to meet you and look forward to hearing you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I'm also a Precinct 8 resident.
So
I've
am
been
I, and so is Brinley.
Me too.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was just gonna say I should have jumped in and said I am a precinct 8 town member as well.
got our
So I'm-
little precinct 8 quorum almost here.
Well, yeah, it's been interesting ever since Jim Connolly tried to close Johnson School, what, 15 years ago. Precinct 8 has been extremely active in town. So yeah, so I think to introduce myself, I've been a resident in Natick for about 35 years now. I lived over on Porter Road in West Natick for about 13 years, and I've lived on High Street for 23 years. And I've been active in town.
A speaking event today at 12. And I want to get my money.
Thanks.
Morning, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
You can continue, Rich. And just a reminder, folks, if you can keep yourselves muted if you're not talking, but we'll give Rich the floor for the time being, and then we can move to questions, and we'll use our normal custom of raising your hand if you've got something you'd like to ask. So continue, Rich.
Yeah, okay, so when I've been, I don't even know the lengths of some of these lengths of time, but I've been a town meeting member for almost 20 years. I've been active on other boards and committees in town. I first got involved when my daughter was about 3 years old, something like that. I looked at myself and I said, you know, I have a value on civic involvement, and I want to teach that to my daughter. And the thing I realized fairly quickly was that the only way to teach that value is to embrace it. And so I started out by getting involved in the parade. I was a volunteer for 2 or 3 years, actually organizing the parade, and then for the next 17 or 18 years, I was one of the marshals every year. And I love doing that. And I'm sorry we're not having a parade anymore. And then I ran for town meeting. I lost my first time and was elected the second time. One session, Paul Connolly, who was moderator, announced that he was looking for finance committee volunteers, and I put my hand up and spent 10 years on the finance committee. And I've been looking for ways to, you know, get re-involved. When Karen Edelman Foster stepped down because she took a new job that required her to step down, I went around to friends of mine and said, you know, who am I supporting for this special election that the board has called? And they said, well, we'll let you know. And then they said, you know, how would you like to run? And, you know, I love Natick. I want to serve. I took a hard look at the amount of work I'd be doing, and I said, yeah, okay. I think that's it's the right thing to do. So you know, it's an interesting place to have to be running unopposed for a 5.5-month term. If I were running for a 3-year term, I'd have to, you know, really dig deep to say, well, what are my intentions? For the 5.5-month term, I'm really looking to learn the job and, see where I can contribute as opposed to having any particular, goals. I want to accomplish this or I want to accomplish that. It's kind of a unique opportunity. We don't get these short terms very often. And I know I'll do a good job. I don't completely know what the job is yet. And so watching the meetings I've been attending lately, it seems like it's both more and less than what you think it is. So I want to learn, what the job really is before I say, well, I'm going to accomplish this or I'm going to accomplish that, because some of those things that I might want to accomplish might not be in the purview of the select board. So figuring that out is part of what I hope to learn in the next 5.5 months. So in terms of, announcing this special and publicizing it, I know it's been announced at the select board a few times. It's sort of interesting, the DPW didn't put out the signs they usually put out. There's usually signs around towns and Natick votes. And I'm not sure why that didn't happen. It's such a small election and the polls aren't open the full day. The polls are only open from 11 to 7 tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if you haven't voted by mail, it's 11 to 7. And it's the funniest looking ballot. It's this big sheet of paper with one little line on it. There are questions I want to ask when I'm on the board. I plan to do a lot of listening.
Maybe I'll lead off with some of the questions. Thank you for that overview, Rich. Let's see, where could I begin? What are some of the questions that you're looking to ask? Like maybe.
So, one of the perennial questions that I have is, what does it take to get streets accepted? And I know the board is constantly talking about this. It came up last meeting, and I live on a corner lot. One of the streets I live on is unaccepted and in very poor condition. And I know the administration's got a roadway improvement plan, but it's something that, I want to find a better way to communicate this and maybe find ways to continue improving these streets, accepting these streets. That's one question. There are I think, I don't even know all the questions I have because I don't know what the board is talking about all the time. And there's so much, I don't know about what's going on in executive sessions, obviously. And I don't know what the various priorities are of the board right now. So,
have you had any occasion to have conversations with any of the current or past select board members just to kind of get candid assessments from them of what it's like to be in this position? We've got one on the Zoom call right now. I see.
Well, Ricky was one of the ones who encouraged me to run. So, and thank you for that, Rick. I think, when I've talked to them, and I've talked to a few of them, they've sort of been coy about what's involved. And I think that's probably right. because the high priority issues are going to change depending on what the citizens are talking about, right? What are
Right.
the high priority issues today? Well, one of the big things that the board's talking about is revise, and this has been going on for a while, is revising alcohol licensing policies to allow more restaurants in town. And it's a tough problem because you don't want to just open the spigot. On the other hand, because of you know, you want to be concerned about public safety and addiction and things like that. On the other hand, you don't want to make it so restrictive that no restaurants can open at all. So, you know, obviously, the dam committee just released a report, which I haven't had a chance to read yet. That's going to be a topic both in front of the board and in front of town meeting because of the citizens petition to pay for the repairs. And that's a tough problem. So, you know, and streets are always a problem. So, you know, I'm not sure what else, those are the things that have come up at the last few board meetings that I've been attending.
Mhm. Sarah, did you? have a question?
Yeah, so in terms, so I'm going to ask a question, kind of looking at your position in the opposite direction. You're saying I want to see what the board's doing and so forth, but from having known you for quite a long time and heard you speak at town meeting and knowing your background, you strike me as a person who's has a very solid understanding of the finances of the town from having been on the finance committee all the time, and just the procedures, sort of how do we do stuff. And to me, what I know of you, I see those as two strengths that you would bring to the board. Just a very kind of pragmatic approach, I guess I would call it. And I'm wondering if you feel that I'm calling that right. Do you have additional things that you feel you would bring to the board? Or
Well, I really appreciate the softball question. Yeah, my policy has always been to listen and hear, and yeah, I do have a pretty good idea of what the, you know, how the finances of the town work. And a lot of what the town does financially is balance citizen priorities. And we can't meet them all, and we're constantly being squeezed because Prop 2.5 restricts our tax revenue increases to, you know, they say 2.5%, but it's a little more than that because of new growth as development goes on. But costs increase at 3 to 3.5% a year. Not only, and it's not, it's a lot of it's, you know, benefits, health insurance and things like that, pension costs. So essentially we've got less and less available money year over year, even though revenues increasing, costs are increasing faster. And we're constantly trying to balance that and continue to provide the services that we need to provide and that the citizens have asked for, with essentially less and less available funds. You know, obviously the board's going to be talking about an override soon. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I tend to think it's not going to be. Some of the discussions I've had suggest that we've got workarounds for the next fiscal year. That's not long-term, but you know, we'll see. We're going to see whether the CPA passes in November, which will actually potentially provide some funding for some of those, if it passes, which I don't know that, you know, I don't know whether it will or not. But if it passes, it'll provide some resources for some things that have traditionally been underfunded. That would be a good thing. I've always, you know, I've always, on the finance committee, I always tried to not get it into the weeds. Like, it doesn't, you know, $1,000 budget doesn't really warrant a lot of discussion. You know, but a deep dive into making sure that the school budget makes sense is always a good thing. That's 66% of our expenditures, roughly. You know, capital improvements. You know, we got to replace police cars every year. They wear out really fast. They get beat up. You know, even if they're idling, they're getting beat up. And so, you know, stuff like that. With the closure of the Leonard Morris ER, I'm concerned about ambulance response times, because where it used to take 20 minutes, or actually closer to 45, it now takes a couple of hours, because of you got to get over there and then you got to restock and then come back. The fire department ambulance service is most of what they do these days. We don't have a lot of structure fires.
Interesting.
So I don't know, I hope I've answered some of that.
Yeah. Brinley, I see you've got your hand up.
Hi. Yeah, so I didn't really have questions, but listening to you speak brought up a few things that are maybe more conversation than question. Well, the second one's a question, but the first one is I have a lot of people who've been talking about the alcohol issue for many years. Actually, it's been a point of conversation since I moved here. I remember being one of the people who went to the select board and sat there for Dame, so Dame could have a sushi bar because to serve sushi because it was called a bar and the issues. And so I've been hearing about and being a part of the concerns with alcohol for a long time. And one of the things that comes up in every conversation, every single time, is more parking is the problem as much as the alcohol. And I sometimes feel like that point doesn't get enough attention. The need to change the 100 restaurant seat requirement isn't just about alcohol. It's about being able to have an establishment downtown that people can drive to. Right now, parking is so bad that people I go somewhere else because I can park, as opposed to visiting downtown. You know, there are people who go to Buttercup, but a lot of the people I know who go to Buttercup regularly are because they can walk there and don't drive there. And the same with most of the establishments I know downtown, where parking has become the issue as much as the alcohol license. And so my hopes would be that that could be a bigger part of the conversation because
it's been, you know, I remember the discussions when, you know, on a town meeting floor in the finance committee when we were talking about replacing the Middlesex Ave garage. There's a, you know, one, you guys are going to laugh at this. One of the unaccepted streets in town, and I'm pretty sure it's still unaccepted. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back to the records. Is Main Street. Main Street is that little piece of street from Central Street, Route 135, to the railroad bridge. It's about a quarter mile long. And one of the problems with accepting it is that the state wants us to take away the angle parking, which is going to just make the parking situation downtown even worse. It's not the only reason that there's a problem down there, and I could be wrong about whether it's accepted or not. But it's yeah, parking's a perennial problem. I totally get that, and you know, we don't have enough space for lots. we can't afford to build a garage. One of the, building a garage, I 10 years ago, the last time I heard some numbers, and it's going to be higher now, but it costs about $20,000 per space to build a garage. And then it has to be maintained, which is what we didn't do with the Middlesex Ave garage. So it's expensive, and permits and parking meters don't pay for it.
Right.
And so it's a problem, and I'm not sure it's not insurmountable, but it's pretty close to it. So
Yeah,
that's parking, and I totally get it.
I certainly wasn't
Go
looking
ahead.
for you
I'm
to
sorry.
solve that problem. I was just letting you know that in the conversations that I have with various groups and friends around town, that comes up as one of the biggest issues. You know, we know people who want to start a restaurant and want to do things and say, I'm not going to look in the downtown area because I wouldn't be able to pull from anywhere other than people who can walk or ride a bike. But my second is kind of it might actually, I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, but you mentioned Johnson School closure and the dam. And I know a lot of people have asked me, how come a dam that is only, relatively speaking, a couple mil, it goes through such a process where it has to go to town meeting and a vote and a full year exploration, whereas closing a school was decided by much less attention, much less input from the financial committee and the whole rest of the town as to how the entire town felt about closing the school, and having many more options in place. And I'm just curious, I wouldn't have asked this question except for you have so much financial committee FinCom experience. What is it that makes that division like that, where something that is such a huge part of the town budget and such a huge reflection of the town as a whole doesn't have to go through that level of whole
Well,
town involvement?
Okay, let me put on my government geek hat for a second. Under the Massachusetts State Constitution, and also, and I forget the section of MGL, but it's in there as well. School districts are autonomous. That is, they don't actually report to the general government. They report to the town through the election of the school committee, but that's it. The school committee is both the executive and legislative body of a school district. So they get to ask the town for money, and the town gets to provide some of that money. And in Natick, the schools have always asked for more money than they've gotten. But all of the decisions regarding schools and, other than building new ones, right, which has to go through a town vote for overrides, because we have to appropriate the money. Money appropriations always go through town meeting, and overrides go through the town vote. But school decisions are all entirely up to the school committee and the school administration. So the finance committee doesn't get to say, you have to keep Johnson School open, or right? The finance committee doesn't get to say any of that. That's finance committee's just recommending things to town meeting. Town meeting doesn't get to say you have to keep Johnson School open. And the
I
select
wasn't
board,
looking, I don't mean that as an answer to say who gets to
yeah, but
input that, but I meant monetarily. I didn't realize that so much of it was so separated at the state level. I meant monetarily because it seems like it's such a bigger money picture.
The school budget is always reviewed by the finance committee before it's approved by town meeting. And it's reviewed in really great detail. But once the money's appropriated, the school administration and the school committee spend it however they want. We can't, it's basically a bottom line appropriation. We give them a chunk of money and they spend it how they're going to. So all decisions, this is what I was getting to, is any decisions about whether to keep a school open or close it, go through the school committee. And you know, even if we appropriate extra money to keep the school open, the school committee doesn't have to spend it that way. So it really is that separate, and that's why I went to the nerd hat, is just to make it really clear they get to do what they want with the money that we give them. We get to complain about it, and we get to say you didn't do what we asked you to do, and we're going to give you less money because of it, but only in arrears.
Gotcha.
Maybe another way, I want to get to Martin, he's had his hand up for quite a while, but it sounds on the school thing that you could ask the question from the perspective of why would the town feel obligated, or that it's the right thing to do to go through such an extensive public input and study process for something like the dam, but the school committee doesn't think that it's so important to go through such an extensive process. I mean, they probably felt their process was adequate, but my takeaway from what you say, Rich, is they can do what they want, so it's up to them.
Well, I will also say that the first study about the schools was probably done 15 years ago, where
I'm guessing more than that,
it could
because
be
they
more,
were
it could
talking
easily be
about,
more
Yeah,
than
it
that.
was a lot longer ago than that.
they were
actually.
talking about, so our oldest is 37. And while he was at Johnson, there were rumblings it was going to
Yeah,
be closed.
No, and yeah, absolutely. And there's been it's been on the boards and on the books to discuss closing Johnson I mean, my daughter's 24 and is a Johnson kid. And, when she was in second grade, we were talking about, should we keep Johnson open or close it? It's been a long-term town discussion, and the school committee and the school administration tried to keep the school open as long as they could. And it finally just tipped over. And I think that they felt that long multi-year discussion, along with the hearings that they did hold, because I know they held several, were
Yeah,
sufficient.
I wasn't trying to get us in a conversation about that. I wasn't trying to hash that out. I was really honestly trying to understand. I didn't realize that they had that much autonomy. That's what I was trying to understand. So that was the answer to my question. I really wasn't trying to rehash the past. That's a whole, that could be a whole different.
Yeah,
I think in answering the
it's big.
question,
I mean,
Rich,
and I'm sad it's closed too, but I really, as much as I want to keep it open, I actually understand why it's closed. So
I think in answering the question, you've echoed what Sarah had brought up, that a strength that you've been very quiet about, that but that you clearly bring to the job is extensive knowledge of how things work. So that's I think that this whole discussion, I think, can kind of give us some assurance of kind of the expertise and experience that you're bringing to this job.
Yeah.
But Martin's been super patient. He's
Wait,
had his
did
hand up.
Brinley finish?
Yeah.
Well, just,
Brinley's got like,
all right, never mind. Fine.
Yeah, and I'm going to probably overstay my welcome because I'm going to add a little question dealing with
Right.
Johnson before I get to my question,
Yeah.
which is, I think got to mute. Well, okay. Anyway, so yeah, the school department does have discretion for operating budgets, certainly, but when you get into, as I understood it, Johnson was going to require a major capital expenditure for serious renovations, and when you get into that type of money, then the FinCom has to get involved in the selectmen and in fact the voters, because it usually requires an override. So that may have gone beyond school committee issue, although the school committee did make the decision to close it. But if it was going to not be closed, I guess all these other boards would have had to figure out a way to fund all the.
Yeah,
all
and that's certainly true. And I didn't really want to get into, all of the nerd stuff about, school building codes and things like that, that would also impact
Yeah.
whether Johnson could stay open, because that lot is substandard.
So anyway, the question that I had was more on your role. I think a lot of people here, maybe a majority are town meeting members, and as new town meeting members come to town meeting, they may think of you as the guy in the second or third row on the right side who always stands up to make procedural motions. And those are important. Those are important because it gets town meeting moving in the right direction. It leads to some efficiency. Sometimes an article really cannot be resolved, and a motion for no action is the right thing to do. But that probably has got you thinking in some way about making town meeting efficient. The last town meeting, people were so frustrated during the pandemic when we were going like for 10 sessions. And then the last town meeting, which I think was the first one in person for a while, went on, Springtown meeting was 3 sessions, and people were like overjoyed. So I don't know how much of a role you've had, but clearly there can be efficiency in town meeting. It can work better. And we just got a survey, town meeting members got a survey from the Town Governance Committee, which I think is addressing the larger question as to whether NATA's going to change its form of government, maybe get rid of town meeting, maybe get rid of the select board, and whatever, many options on the table. But you must have had a thought about that in terms of either making our government more efficient or just changing it completely. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to start by saying that my preference, and I volunteered for that committee and wasn't appointed. It's probably a good thing, actually, because if I were on that committee, I couldn't be running for select board. My preference is for the town meeting form of government. I love how it's really the last bastion of pure democracy we have. And I love that ordinary citizens get a real say. That being said, the reason for this town governance study committee is to find ways, find those places that slow down government, and see what the right way to fix those are. It's possible that changing our form of government is the right way to fix things. I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. I'm, going to wait and see what that committee comes up with. We're the second largest town that still uses a town meeting form of government in the state. Brookline is larger, population-wise. The fact that stuff has to go through town meeting some stuff has to go through town meeting for zoning changes and stuff, and it only happens twice a year, slows down a lot of stuff. And there are ways we can improve that without removing town meeting. But I'm not sure what the committee's going to say. I've answered a couple of surveys already. I still have that one to answer. The one that just came out, I've parked it until after the election. And, I don't know what the right answers are. I know that the moderator is doing everything he can to speed up town meeting. And the moderator is, he's in charge of town meeting. That's what his job is. And he's doing everything he can to speed things up. And I know that one thing that slows down town meeting is, and I don't want to cast shade, but when people start repeating themselves on the floor, it slows down town meeting a lot. And we can't control that. The moderator has, he can say, okay, we're repeating ourselves, but people stand up and speak. And people have the right to stand up and speak. That's what we're there for as town meeting members, is to, put our precinct's opinions out and vote for what's good for the town and what's good for our precinct.
Hi, Richard, it's Deborah.
Wait, please, Deb.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So did I answer your question, Martin?
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
Okay, Deborah, go ahead and jump in.
Sorry to jump in, Rich. I think we know each other from the Common Street Spiritual Center.
Yep.
Yeah, so good, and you're running for the town meeting, for select board?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and I like what you're saying about town members. I'm a town member meeting. I'm one of the only African American on the board. Do you have any suggestions on how we could increase the involvement of the Native American, Black American, Asian, Indian? One of the things that we do every year, I don't know if you know about the Multicultural Day. You know, as American, African American, sometimes, in a senior, and I'm also disabled. I check a bunch of boxes. What I like about town meeting, I like when it's on Zoom. It's very peaceful. It actually puts me to sleep. I love it.
It's always on Pegasus too. You can always watch it on
I
cable.
know, but I feel bad because I missed the whole spring town meeting because I don't like to do crowds. It's COVID. And I was supposed to go to, my daughter played basketball, so I was always at the high school with her when she was on Natick High. So I just don't like the big having to sit for hours, But if it's on Zoom, I think it should be hybrid. I think that for people that are seniors or disabled, that that you should make a pitch for it to be hybrid, because it's really, really good. I'm learning so much about town. I'm from Boston. I'm from the big city of Boston, and I never got into politics, and I am just enjoying learning all this stuff. It's really wonderful. So that's just and I can see how, as Native for Black Lives Matter, Tom and I, he dropped off the committee for now. He's on hiatus, but I'm sure he's still an activist. So Tom, go ahead.
Well, so let me answer a couple of questions that I heard. First of all, in terms of hybrid town meeting, the moderator, who's in charge of town meeting, did put an article on the warrant. I forget whether it was fall or spring last year, to request a home rule petition to allow hybrid town meetings, which are currently not allowed. That's not in the purview of the select board, although we submit, given the instruction, we submit home rule petitions. And that's gone up to the general court for their consideration. The second thing I wanted to say is town meeting is always broadcast on cable. So if you can watch it, even if it's not on Zoom, you can watch it on cable. So I just wanted to point that out. I hope I've answered those questions for you, Deb.
Thank you for that, Rich.
Rich, what I was saying,
I'm
Rich,
sorry.
let me just finish, Rich. I was saying for people who are I'm a town meeting member, but I can't make the meetings if they're not hybrid. Is that clear? Did I clarify? Tom, could you help me what I'm trying to say?
You mean in terms of voting and in terms of speaking? Because you can't.
Well, if you're a member of town meeting, you're supposed to go to town meeting meetings, right?
Yes, right. Yeah.
But I can't go because I don't like to go.
Yeah, and it's not allowed under state law right now. And the moderator has, town meeting passed a home rule petition request to change the rules. And the general court, which is our state legislature, is considering it. And I know that request has come from other communities as well.
Yeah, part of what you say is this is twice now in this meeting where we've learned that, you know, we are a town, but we don't get to decide everything on our own, both the way the school department is
Yeah.
managed and this as well. There's, you know, we have to operate under rules relative to state law. So it does sound like, I mean, if we were applying for that, like we were recognizing the deficiency or the desire to have hybrid, and that would help not just Deborah, but all, you know, lots of the rest of us. It'd be nice if we could, but we can't.
Right, there's a lot of, Deborah, you're not the only one that feels that way, you know, having been on town meeting a long time myself. Honestly, there were times when I thought Zoom town meeting was the greatest thing ever. There were nights when we had more town meeting members on the Zoom meeting than we've ever had in person, except for maybe a couple times when there was some really high profile issue, but people like the idea of a hybrid meeting. And so we are trying to get it from the state, and I hope we get it, because you are absolutely right.
Let's move on to Rich, if we could, and then Deborah, you know, we can always circle back to additional questions, but Rick, you're on mute at the moment. Rick, you got to come off.
Got it. Sorry, thanks. Richard, my question currently is, I know you haven't had a chance yet to review the dam committee's full report, and you'll receive that, I guess, on the 21st from them, along with a presentation. But I'm just curious, given that you know the process and how long it's been going on, what would it take, and that it's been a unanimous vote by this committee to make a recommendation to remove the dam, what would it take for the select board to decide not to do it, or to delay the decision at this point, or to allow a petition, a citizen's petition, if that's in your power, to be passed to restore the dam?
So there is, on the fall annual town meeting warrant, a citizen petition sponsored by Salt Beaumont and a bunch of people to appropriate enough additional funds that over what's already been appropriated and designated to repair the dam to actually complete the job. The select board, in my judgment, properly did not take a position on that warrant article because they hadn't seen the dam report. If town meeting passes that, then the administration will have enough money to theoretically to repair the dam and leave it where it is. And that's probably a pretty clear statement by the community that that's what the community wants. The select board has taken no position yet on whether to do anything one way or the other about the dam. While I have some initial opinions, I haven't read the report yet, so I don't know what it says. So I'm keeping my mind open about what we should do. I do know, and I've read enough, I did start through the FAQs that accompany the report. I do know that if we repair the dam, we have to take all the trees down and remove all the stumps, and we won't be able to have trees over there. I know that there's some people in town that think we can keep the trees if we repair the dam the right way, but it's pretty clear from what I've seen that that's not the case. So that's, I just want to put that out there. I want to get clear information before I come up with a final opinion, and the select board, if the motion passes, we'll see what the administration does with it. Yeah, if not, then the select board will have to come up with something directing the administration how to proceed. And I will also say that there's a bunch of funding that's designated to repair the dam. It can't be used to remove the dam or remove the spillway. It's actually the spillway that would get removed. That money would have to be reappropriated. Whatever happens, it's going through town meeting. So that's,
Procedurally, maybe you could help me understand, would the select board have to take a position after all of this work has gone into giving a unanimous recommendation to the board, or could they simply take no position, leave it to town meeting?
I think, well, the committee that did the study was appointed by the town administrator, the interim town administrator before Mr. Erickson. I think it was the right thing to do, to appoint that committee. It wasn't appointed by the select board. I think the select board would be remiss to not, if they didn't take a position. It's a pretty divisive topic. It's going to be a very tough discussion because there are a lot of people in town who want to keep the spillway where it is. And there are a lot of people in town who want to take the spillway down. It's a tough situation. I personally think that the board should take a position once they've reviewed the report. But it's going to be up to the board as a whole, not just me, as to whether to take a position or not. And as I said, ultimately, if town meeting passes Mr. Beaumont's article, that's going to be a pretty strong indication of where the town stands.
Just really quickly to tie this up, they're making at this point a completely emotional pitch, and in a completely emotional way. I think Martin and others on the committee have all expressed their view and the collective view of the town that we'd all love to see the spillway stay. It's just there are too many reasons why it should go, and that's really the issue. So it isn't as though anybody is saying, let's get rid of that spillway. It's horrible. The spillway is not the problem.
Yeah, and I can't really, as I said, I haven't read the report. So, the estimates I've seen for deconstructing the spillway, I don't think that and I don't know for sure, but I don't think that there is enough money in those estimates to actually reclaim the riverbed that's going to be exposed. So I don't know that it's purely a financial issue either. I think it's everything. I think it's financial, it's emotional, it's ecological. There's a lot of equity issues, and it's a hard decision.
I have a question about it, but Bill's got his hand up, so I'd like to let him speak, and then I may circle back to this.
Yeah, Rick, I have, just a second, Bill. Rick, has my non-answer helped you at all?
Like a politician.
It is a tough spot, and I think you'll be edified by the committee's really incredible work. Also, everybody knows that cost estimates are just estimates, and that more engineering studies and other things need to be done on either restoring or removing. It's but that's all doable. Anyway, thank you for trying. And sorry to put you on the spot when you're not even on the spot yet until another day or so and you're elected.
He's going to withdraw his nomination there.
Don't withdraw, please. We want to have you back in 5 months, so don't withdraw.
All right, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, I have more questions on the dam, so I wanted to jump in before Doug. I heard you say that the select board, well, let me not say it that way. My question is the select board going to make a recommendation to town meeting regarding one, the warrant that's already there, and two, about dam removal? Now, you've made it clear that you haven't read the report, and I'm not pushing you on what you're going to say or what your what your position is, but I would like you to talk a little bit about the process for you personally, and then for the select board regarding this conflicting issues around the dam.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, the select board took up warrant articles that were in front of them, one of which was Saul's citizens petition. The select board chose not to make any recommendation one way or the other. They took no action on that warrant article in terms of a recommendation or not a recommendation, because they hadn't seen the dam report, which I think is the right thing to do. Once they, and I'm going to say we, because I assume I'll be elected, officially get that report, I suspect that there will be a desire to revisit that warrant article and
Okay.
make a recommendation from the select board's opinion, perspective about what to do relative to that warrant article. I can't say for sure, right? I'm not on the board yet, and I'm not going to be the chair when I'm on the board. But I suspect it'll come back for, the select board to say something. I do know the finance committee is going to see that report and think about it as well. And I look forward to seeing what they say, frankly, because it's money. And it's a chunk of money. I think in terms of the process, I think the select board probably will come up with a recommendation. I can't say when or, what it'll be.
In terms of, I just wanted to jump in real quick in terms of the finances surrounding the dam. I think one thing that gets lost in the shuffle sometimes, people are looking at, we either spend money to fix it now, or we spend money to remove the spillway now. But if we fix it, then once it's fixed, we're not done spending money. We have to spend money on an ongoing basis to do monitoring and prepare dam inspection reports forever.
And take down trees as they start to grow.
Yeah, and so there's maintenance, there's inspection reports, there's all kinds of ongoing operation and maintenance that is left out of the discussion. But over time, especially when, as you say, Rich, the town is getting squeezed harder and harder for money, anything that we can pull permanently out of the operating budget is going to help. So I just want to throw that out there, that the money isn't just the cost of removing the spillway or the cost of fixing the dam. And then even leaving aside the whole issue of, as long as the town owns the dam, we're liable for any damages that come from it. But if it's not a dam anymore, then it's a river and the town doesn't own it, we're not liable. So I just throw that out there.
I would say I'm really cognizant of those issues as well. Those are all going into my thinking.
The point and question, I guess, that I wanted to make, point being, let's see, sorry, I lost my train of thought as I went to refill my coffee mug. I think for folks that want to restore the river, there's a lot of frustration in the information being put forth by the Save the Dam folks, that it's felt that that there's a lot of misinformation there, both on the quasi-scientific information that they're trying to promote, such as destroying the ecology of the river by removing the dam, but also financially. And this was the thing I wanted to ask you about, particularly from your experience as being on the finance committee. You mentioned earlier that if the decision were made by the town to remove the dam, all of the monies previously appropriated can't be used for that unless they were reappropriated. I think I've heard, I was listening to the select board meeting and listening to Mr. Beaumont's description of what they were trying to do. And it sounded to me, just my layman's view of this, that they were trying to say, look, we only need to appropriate $900 and something thousand more to repair the dam because of the previous appropriations at previous town meetings. So they were making two conclusions from that. One, the town has said twice already, overwhelmingly through town meeting votes, we want to repair this dam. We want to keep it. The town has already spoken. And two, we only need another 900,000 to do it versus the multi-millions to remove it. But my thought about this is that to the first argument, yes, the town voted to repair it, but that was without the knowledge that there was a viable removal option. So we know more than we knew when we did those previous votes. And second, although we did those appropriations, we haven't actually spent the money. We've spent some amount, I understand, 200,000, but by far not the bulk of it. And if we haven't spent it, to my layman's view of things, then we're back at square one. We should not be considering those prior appropriations in the plus and minus equation. We really need to look at the current estimates of the total cost of both options.
Yeah, and from an accounting standpoint, you're absolutely right. The other thing to know is that the bulk of the prior appropriations were borrowing appropriations, and the money has not been borrowed. So we don't even have the cash yet that we've appropriated to spend. So really, when I say reappropriate, what we would be doing is canceling a borrowing authorization, and then probably putting another borrowing authorization in its place. But it's not money we've spent. It's not money we even have in our bank account to spend. We just have an authorization to borrow enough money to do, I forget, 1.3 million or something like that. And I forget the exact numbers.
It's just really frustrating to see, they keep touting how many signatures they've got for Save the Dam. And I understand the emotional argument a lot, but it's frustrating when you think that a lot of people may be signing that with a very skewed understanding of the full picture. They're being misled. Simply put.
Yeah,
and I know you can't necessarily.
I can't say
Yeah, I know.
anything.
Yeah, we don't
That's
mean to
fine.
put you on the spot that way, but I think there is frustration among people who have followed the process for a long time and kept up with the great work the committee has done to suddenly see this, it feels like it came from left field, and it's going to be, honestly, it's one of the issues I don't envy you for deciding to be on the board, is to step into this maelstrom. But
Yeah, I mean, to Rick's
Yeah,
point,
it's the one decision that it's the one decision coming up in front of the board that I think is the most politically dangerous.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm trying to keep a really open mind.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, I think that's, I want to say, just to everybody here, I think one of my best skills is that I keep an open mind and I'm willing to change it.
Yeah.
I'm really willing to change my mind if I hear, reasons.
Yeah. Super important.
Before we go to Ricky, Cindy Bates had put a question in the chat. I want to.
Well, thanks for being more attentive than I was to that. Yeah.
So I'll give you a little. I'll give you a little bit of history. Back in the 60s, the General Court passed Chapter 90, which is about roadways and how to fund roads and how to use gas tax and stuff like that. And part of what that said is that the town's only allowed to maintain roads it owns. And that led to towns all over the Commonwealth doing these mass street acceptances to take ownership of the roads. When Natick did that, they didn't accept all the roads for some reason. We don't know. There's no real good. We can't we don't really know why they didn't accept all the roads. Like, why didn't they accept Main Street? Why didn't they accept Cottage Street, which, by the way, is now accepted, for example. And so what we were left with is about 23 miles of unaccepted roads. And we can't maintain them except for public safety reasons. We're allowed to do enough patching to keep the road safe for public safety reasons. That's it. And so the patching that goes on unaccepted roads, the pothole fixing and stuff, is so that public safety vehicles can get through. That has led to the current situation where there's a lot of unaccepted roads that we can't afford to accept, because that would mean we'd have to pave them, and we can't afford to pave them. So that's the real background. Did you have more that you wanted to know? Okay.
Unmute, Cindy.
I've been hearing this word about acceptance of streets and over the past several months, and like, okay, well, whatever. And that it came up again today. I'm like, well, what the heck is that thing anyway?
Yeah.
And then when you gave your example of Main Street, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, so that is complicated because the angle parking is kind of important right now.
And it's
Well,
interesting what streets have been accepted. I mean, we live on a little dinky dead end street, really not important in the grand scheme of traffic flow around town. And our street was accepted in the 1800s.
No, the acceptance happened in the 60s.
Well, if you look on this town's list of street acceptances, it has a date when it was accepted, and a lot of them are before 1960.
Yeah.
Including our little dinky road here that was
Well,
accepted, in
what's-
like 1890 something.
Well, another interesting one is Pitt Street, which I live near, that goes by the backside of Johnson School. And until recently, about 10, 12 years ago, Pitt Street was accepted between Pond and Atherton, but not accepted from Atherton to Curve Street.
Mhm.
And the piece from Atherton to Curve is the piece that backs up to Johnson School. So it's just weird. Which ones are accepted and not accepted is just weird. And we don't
So
know.
in other words, the streets that are not accepted are technically owned by the property owners, adjacent property owners?
Yeah, the abutters own to the midline of the street.
Okay.
And in fact, they also own any utilities and things that are underneath them. So if a sewer pipe breaks under an unaccepted roadway, technically, the abutters have to pay for the repairs.
Thank you very much. I
And
feel completely enlightened.
my apologies, Cindy, for not seeing that.
That's
question
okay,
in the
it's
chat.
okay.
Rich, thanks for being more attentive.
So I think Ricky's got her hand up.
Yeah, you got to come off mute, Ricky. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
It disturbs me that DPW did not put up the vote Tuesday sign. And I'm wondering if it's possible to call the town administrator immediately and rectify that, because I think most people won't know about it. And I think it would be distressing to people who regularly vote not to have known about it.
Yeah, I think it's the town clerk that actually has to be called.
Well, if it's the town clerk, I would call Diane immediately and get that changed, because we still have a day and, or, whatever the signs say, made it closed today, that needs to be up. I think that's important.
That sign wouldn't be adequate because the hours are limited. You'd have to say vote Tuesday from 11 to 7. You'd have to.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to know is in this citizens move on the dam, people came out on Native Day and were lobbying for it and gave me cards and stuff like that. And people forgive me, since we are literally on the move. I wasn't up to date on the citizens petition. And I have the feeling that when they say save the dam, people are under the impression that what they're saying is save the spillway. Am I wrong about that?
You are absolutely right. People do not understand that the spillway is not the dam. In fact,
Exactly.
it's, the dam is that earth that's to the south down towards Dover,
Where the trees are.
where the trees are, and the trees have to go away. If we save the dam, the
Yeah.
trees have to go away. People don't, I don't think there's a general understanding that something's gonna change down there no matter
Well,
what.
I think that needs to be spelled out literally in simple language, exactly what that means. So that you don't get to the point when it comes to the actual decision that you've got an uproar, a popular uproar. I think people need to understand it. And I think what needs to happen is for someone to write a guest editorial into the Metro West News and put it on the Facebook and do it in very simple, everyday terms that in effect is almost an equation that says save the dam means getting rid of the trees and keeping the spillway. Fixing the dam means, I mean, just that very simple equation so that people are not misled and so that the decision in the end can be one that people can accept. I really think that that's
I
important.
couldn't agree more, Ricky. And
And if I weren't trying to pack up my house and everything, I would write it, but I can't.
I totally get it. I couldn't agree more, and hopefully, once the board officially gets the report, and once the finance committee officially gets the report, those opinions will get clearly stated, whatever the right opinions are, will get clearly stated in the recommendation book and in front of the select, in front of the town through the select board. And I agree, it would be great to put something to.
Well, I'm not even talking about the final decision. I'm just talking about a public clarification of what these positions mean to the lay public who has not been following this issue at all. And most people are in that position.
Yep.
And I
Yeah,
think
and yeah,
very
I totally get it. It's, unfortunately, Ricky, I don't think it's, I could write that, but I don't think it's my place right now.
no, I'm not saying that it's your place. I'm
Yeah.
saying that perhaps the committee needs to say that publicly. But there needs to be, or maybe the administration needs to clarify it.
Sarah's got something to add here in terms of a response directly, Ricky.
Well, I also, Martin helped write the report, so he might have something to add.
Yeah, sure.
So I just get 1 second. I know because Martin absolutely has more experience with this report than I do. But I know there is a group, sort of the rumblings of a group forming, Ricky, to kind of do what you're talking about, to kind of boil it down for the public. This is what one recommendation means. This is what the other recommendation means, and try to do some public information around this
Education.
issue.
Because
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
brought up to me on Natick Days. And of course, I want to say what the dam means is not clear.
Right. And I
Nobody,
had-
until this study came up,
Yep.
understood clearly that the dam is the land on which the trees, it's the earth,
Yep.
that's where the trees have grown, that's what the dam is, not the spillway.
Right, and I had a number of conversations at Natick Days, because we had for those of you who don't realize, weren't there, Bill and I both were working at a booth for a group called Eco Natick, which is a new environmentally focused group in town, but we had conversation, people came up to us and asked us about the dam, figuring, oh, you're environmental people, what do you think about the dam? And you're exactly right, Ricky. I had conversations with a number of people who really didn't understand the nuances. And some of them went away still wanting to save the dam, which is fine. But I feel like they had a better understanding of what they were asking for. I'm not trying to, if somebody has all the information and still wants to save the dam, that's absolutely, I'm not saying if you are in favor of saving the dam,
I
you're,
hear
but you need, I
It's
want people
just
to
a
know
total
the facts.
misunderstanding
Yeah,
of
yeah.
what the dam is and what the spillway is.
Yep.
That the dam is the land next to the spillway upon which all these trees have grown and broken the integrity of the earth
Yep.
that's there to hold the water back.
Right. And
Yeah.
so people, as I say, I think you're right. A lot of people don't understand that. And, I mean, it is a beautiful place, it's a beautiful to sit there. And I totally get the emotional appeal of, I've always loved this place and I wanted to stay here. The problem is it's not going to stay that way no matter what you do.
I'd really like to invite Martin to say a couple of words, but with my
Please.
preamble of let's make a large problem and then the Natick example of there's so many self-appointed experts in the world these days, and it's frustrating as heck to people that like to rely on careful study and analysis. In the report or the committee that the town administrator appointed and the report that they produced, I thought was just so thorough, so well thought out, really was not biased in any way. From my vantage point, it really set out to look at all of the issues and documented everything. And that's what we should be relying on as the source of information to make an informed decision. That being said, Martin was on that team, and I feel free to say, I'd rather not comment, but what was your take on how the study went? Do you feel it fairly represented things?
Yeah, I could say, I could go on and on, but
Yeah, right.
I don't know where to start. I mean, yeah, I suppose I should prelude by saying that it was not totally unanimous. I was one of the two, I wouldn't call it necessarily dissenters, but with a differing opinion. So the way this was set up is, when we first set up the committee, we were given three outcomes that we could each have. We could either support the recommendation, we could live with the recommendation, or we could dissent from the recommendation, or we could abstain. Actually, the four choices. So I'm not sure, we're quite sure exactly what that meant, but in the end, I was one of the two people who voted to live with the recommendations, because basically we had concerns about it. The two of us didn't go wholeheartedly into the dam removal. We had some concerns about the navigability of the river with the water level down, and concerns about the aesthetics in terms of the community liking the beauty. So it was sort of unanimous, but on the other hand, it was also sort of a 16-2 vote. The report itself was unanimous because that reflected the views of everybody. It was, we went back and forth to make sure our views, the two of us who had one point of view, were portrayed fairly, and the other points of view were portrayed fairly as well. So it's a really good reading, I must say after all of that. But in terms of how to educate the public about this, it's really tough. I mean, this has been on the table since 2019, a year and a half with the committee itself, and then before that with the Conservation Commission. And if people aren't going to take the time to get the information, there's not much we can do about it. I think that Jillian, when she was here in Coffee with a Purpose, did a magnificent job of taking like 20 or so hours of meeting time. Maybe it was 30 hours. I don't know. However long we spent on meetings, and digesting that down to a 1/2 hour slideshow. I mean, I don't know how she did it, but I helped her a little bit.
She's amazing.
If we can get people to watch that half hour, I think they'll be, they'll kind of understand what's going on a lot better, but you can't really force them to, and some people aren't going to. Is there an executive summary to, actually, the report doesn't really have an executive summary. It had, but the first page or two with the recommendation kind of is an executive summary. So yeah, I do hope people are going to read that.
So, Mark,
And I want to point out, there's also linked from the dam page, there's a link to a set of FAQs that in and of themselves have some interesting information.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what, can you tell me, since I'm on the move, what is the committee's recommendation?
The recommendation is pretty straightforward. It's to remove the spillway and restore the river to a naturally flowing river. And then there's a second part of that, which was interesting because that wasn't anything we talked about at the very beginning. But in conjunction with that, an integral part of that is to invest money in a beautiful park. So the park is going to need some changes. All of the parks in that area, not just the dam park, but Grove Park on the other side and the multi-purpose area are going to need some renovations because the topography is going to change and because those parks were kind of run down even to begin with. So we are recommending that it become a beautiful park. And personally, I love the spillway too. Like everybody, we've been taking pictures of that since we've moved to Natick, which is a long time, almost actually longer than Ricky, believe it or not. After looking at some other rivers, natural rivers, I realized that this river could be beautiful even without the spillway. It could be a different kind of river. So I was of the opinion that it can be beautiful either way, but we're going to have to put money into making it accessible, where people can still get to the water, see the water from the right point of view, find the places where the river is deep enough to go boating and get the canoe launches there. We also are recommending to kind of help the river along, because the way the spillway works is can you see my hands? It kind of spreads out the width of the river, and by
Right.
spreading it out over a longer, much wider area than it naturally would be, when you bring that water down, it's going to be shallow. But if you can channel that so that it's deeper in the middle, then you have a better chance of boating, and that can be done. Apparently, the engineers have said that can be done.
Well, and the other thing, Martin, I want to bring up is that as we narrow the river, we're going to expose some riverbed that we
Yeah.
don't know what's there, and we're going to have to deal with that as well. And we have to deal with that, and that there may be in the sediment some environmental problems that we have to deal with, and we should plan to do that. So that all goes into this decision that I don't know the answer to. And
Right.
I just put in a chat a link to the Natick page that has the report and the FAQs linked.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, Rich. And I do want to just be a little bit mindful of the time. It is 10:30. Few people have started to drop off. People may have other things to do today. So
Yeah, sorry to
I
interrupt you,
want to
Mark.
at least take the time to thank you, Rich, for spending the time. I am sure that you will get elected despite the lack of signage. I don't know if you saw in the chat, Cindy Bates has a to-do immediately upon conclusion to run right down to the town hall and speak to someone about this. And that notwithstanding, I'd recommend all the rest of us to call as well if we want, because yeah.
And
Yeah,
those
and of course,
tomorrow, they
anybody who
haven't
signed up for mail-in voting and said all elections would have gotten a ballot in the mail.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the good way to do it. But
Well, and I want to say that I hope that Coffee with a Purpose will stay on Zoom so that I can participate from Canton.
yeah, Ricky, I have a
Okay.
really important question for you. I'm noticing that your email and Jay's are both RCN addresses, and I'm assuming that
And they
that's
will
gonna
stay.
change.
No,
It will
no.
stay. Oh,
It will
excellent. Okay,
stay.
so you'll continue to get our emails.
Yeah,
Good.
we'll pay an extra $4 a month or something to keep that going so that we, but and our cell phones will stay the same. We will probably drop the landline,
Mhm.
but We will get out information as to our new address, which is 437 Del Pond Road in Canton. I don't know the zip yet, but that's our new mail address, 437 Del Pond Road, Canton.
It's okay for me to put that in the chat, Ricky?
Yes. And I will,
If Canton has one zip, it's 02021, I think.
oh, good. What is it?
If the town of Canton has
Yeah,
just
it's
one zip
fine.
code, I'm pretty sure it's 02021 because that's where my dad had his business.
02021?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'll check that right now.
437 Del Pond Road, Canton, 02021. Martin, you could probably turn the recording on at this point. Now that
Martin, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I hope that I didn't cut you off too soon.
Oh, no, no, everything's fine.
Oh, there's also 02062, so you need to check.
Oh.
No, it's the first one.
Okay.
I recognize the
No, I just checked. That's one of them.
No, it's the one that you said.
02021.
Okay, and I will turn the recording off right now. Thank you, everybody.